if you had to guess which electric car will go furthest, will have the longest range in 2020 under $40,000, you probably would never guess that it would be this one. And it is a 2020 Chevy Bolt EV. That's right. Never thought it would kind of happen, but if you probably forgot about this car back in the day when it came out, it actually had the second longest range of all electric cars out there, behind Tesla. Now, I do believe that they did not seize the moment, because that was a great selling point. It started at about $38,000. That's before the Model 3, so they were kind of kings in this under 40,000 market, with a great over 200-mile range, but they really never did anything about it. I'm kind of curious to know if you guys are watching, and put it in the comment section. What do you guys think right now about Chevy Bolt? Now, Chevy invited myself and Tom Moloughney, who is going to be here in just a couple of minutes, for his segment Plugged In with Tom Moloughney. And we even have, it's so serious, we even have graphics for it right there. So we both were invited to this sort of a scenic drive that Chevy organized for a bunch of journalists. Unfortunately, we were in two different groups, so we never got to meet and do this in person. That's why we're going to do this in our normal way over the Skype type of software. But it was, by the way, the drive was beautiful. It was from the state of Washington to Oregon. And I got to see some amazing places. This is me enjoying the car. Both of us got the same color. This is one of the few new things that you will see about the Chevy Bolt next year. I really do like this color, the contrast with nature and all of that stuff. But one of the biggest things that they did, they've extended the range. Not by much, about 10%. They did say they changed the chemistry of the batteries and stuff like that, and Tom will get into that. But now it really is, once again, going to be able to compete in that category. Is this enough? Is Chevy doing enough, generally speaking? Because we know they discontinued the Chevy Volt, the car that I have and like a lot. As a matter of fact, now that I drove Volt for a while, I like Volt better. But I get ahead of myself, so let me bring in Tom in here. Before that, a quick reminder that this channel and this video is sponsored by Climate Exchange. They are back with their Tesla raffle, and this time the winner will get to pick any Tesla, any configuration he or she wants, up to $195,000, which basically covers all of them. And it is a non-profit organization that fighting for the carbon-free world. So even if you don't win, you'll be doing a good deed. So go to carbonraffle.org to enter today. The link is in the description of this video. I should mention that this is for US only. All right, before I go any further, let me bring Tom in, and we'll talk about what our impressions were, and you know, kind of estimate where Chevy is with their whole electrification thing. Tom, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, Alex, what's happening?
Not much. I enjoyed my drive. It was beautiful. You know, I was more impressed with the Washington and Oregon State's nature than maybe the car itself. But you know, tell my audience a little bit more about what we did, what your impressions were, and did you enjoy it? And then we'll get into all of the specs and how Chevy's doing overall with this.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, too bad we weren't in the same wave of the media drive. But as you know, we discussed this last week. I was in North Carolina with Toyota, driving some of their new vehicles. So unfortunately, we couldn't sync up. I always like it when we can do the video in person. But nonetheless,
our audience does too, I have a feeling. Actually, let's ask them. They can put in the description of this video. Do you guys like us sitting next to each other, or do you like us, you know, talking to each other like this with our lips are not always matching? So we'll throw it out there. Go ahead.
So anyway, yeah, so we the good thing is you gave me the tip ahead of time when you were out there. You said, as soon as you get here, reserve the blue one, because I think that's a really cool color. So I did. As soon as I got there, I put my name on the list for the new Oasis Blue, one of two new colors that the Bolt's going to have in 2020. The other one is Cayenne Orange Metallic, which is kind of more red than orange, but I also think it looked pretty good. So I think it's definitely two good additions to the Bolt color scheme. The Oasis Blue, as you said, in particular, looked great where we were driving from Seattle, Washington, down to Portland, Oregon. The Pacific Northwest is beautiful. It's even more beautiful this time of year. when the trees start to change color. So it was really a great drive. They set us up drive for that was somewhere around 240 miles, I think, between the two, and really did that to show us how the range on the new Bolt is that much improved. As you mentioned, it now is EPA rated at 259 miles. That's 21 more miles than the previous Bolts were 238. And I don't think that's a coincidence that it's 1 mile further than the Kona at 258. And now that Tesla, now Chevy can claim that they have the longest range electric vehicle under 40,000 miles with the Bolt. So I think, even though it's just a mile, it's good to be able to say that. And, I think that's going to definitely make a difference with some Bolt drivers. I know it's only a little bit less than 10%, but as you know, if you drive an electric car, every 10 miles makes a difference. And if this is 21 more, it might mean that somebody can now make that, 115, 120 mile round trip without having to stop each way, round trip, without having to stop along the way at all.
Yeah, now I'll tell you what I was kind of weirded out by that. The title of this video is Best Range Under $40,000 for an electric car in 2020. Now, I came up with it myself just by looking at the chart and just listening to their presentation because I think it's a big deal. When I asked Chevrolet saying, hey guys, is this something that is this the angle I can take? They were kind of like, well, let us think about it. Let's double check and stuff like that. And honestly, let's just be honest here. This is the only thing that I think their marketing department can claim. And yes, rightfully so. It does appear to be true. We've seen the chart. But why are they once again not behind their own product? Like any other marketing department will jump on this. They should be making this video saying, where's my slide? I'm just going to blow it up right there, right? Saying, hey, we got the best range for any electric car in the United States because they don't sell in Europe, under $40,000. That's a big achievement. But I have to talk them into that. I have to make them.
I think that's just a case of product managers not wanting to officially endorse anything without having their lawyers say, yes, do it. So I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about that. There's different people that do different things within Chevy, and the people that we were talking to might have been more on the line of product managers or engineers. And I think if you call Chevy marketing, I think they might have a different response. So let that one slide, in my opinion, because they, as you say, you saw the graph. They're making that claim. It is the longest range electric vehicle, even though it's super close. So I think that's something that maybe you just spoke to the wrong person about. I wouldn't worry too much.
I spoke to the person who is in charge of marketing for Chevrolet Bolt Eevee. This doesn't get any more marketing Chevy Bolt than that. That's why I was like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, nice guy, by the way. Really liked them, and yes, they are. I feel like they're behind us. I'm just not really sure if they're publicly behind it. And I guess what brings me to the next question. Listen, they missed the first opportunity. I don't know if you agree with me, where they came out with this great range. They were pretty much the only one in that segment with that price range. They didn't do anything with it. Now they got this new thing going on for them. Not as big of a deal now in 2020, but once again, I feel like they're not grabbing the opportunity. Where do you think Chevrolet stands in this whole electrification thing? They're trying, but they're not really willing to share it with the world, I feel like. What's your take on that?
Well, we've talked about this before. I think one of the biggest problems isn't really the car. It's more of, once the car makes it to the dealership, how is it talked about? How's it marketed? Somebody comes in and is interested in buying, say a Chevy Cruze. You're never going to have a salesman say, a Cruze. Are you interested in this Bolt? I know it has a higher MSRP, but once we start stacking the incentives on top of each other, once you take a look at your fuel costs, your maintenance, it actually might cost you less. You're never going to see that, but you're going to see somebody go into a dealership that asks, hey, what about this Chevy Bolt? And the salesperson saying, well, yeah, they're okay, but I can put you in this Cruze over here for $10,000 less. So I think the pain point is more at the dealership level than GM. They're building it. It's a darn good electric car. It's a little bit better now. The range really helped. I think they could have done a few other things, and quite honestly, I'm disappointed they didn't do a few other things to make the car a little bit better. And I asked them about this, and as typical as you would imagine, you just kind of got the, well, yeah, that's a good suggestion. Maybe in future cars. And if you would have asked me, the three things that I would have probably wanted to do here to really get people more excited about the car was perhaps increase the maximum DC charge rate. It's still only 55 kilowatts, although now it has a new charging profile and it can hold the higher charging rate longer than what the previous generation did, which means they should be able to significantly cut down on the DC fast charge time. That's number one. I would have loved
And we should
to
probably mention what it is. We were, when we're charging, and that's the picture from the Electrify America charging stop. Everybody was getting 52, 53 kilowatts, which I think they maxed out at 55 anyway.
Yeah.
Not exactly impressive, but
Right.
it's about 50 something.
Yeah, especially for a car with a 66 kilowatt hour battery. It's a big battery. So
Yeah.
you're going to be hanging out at a DC charge station well over an hour to get the car, up to 80%. So that's a pain point for the Bolt. I really was kind of expecting with this mild refresh, if you want to call it, to bump that up to at least 75 kilowatts. 100 kilowatts would be great, but even 75 would make a big difference, because now you're talking about getting to 100 to 80% at well under an hour.
Yeah, and
So
they did tell us, they did tell us that they reworked the chemistry of the battery. They don't use cells, they use kind of plates that I think Audi uses and so forth. And by the way, let me just give you quick kudos. I remember we were talking about superchargers versus Electrify America, and I was concentrating on how many locations they're having and the maximum charge rate. And you pointed out that, hey, you know what? They're not working very well, unlike Tesla superchargers. And you know what? When we got there, I think 4 or 5 cars needed to charge. Half of the Electrify America stalls were not functional, and by that I mean the card readers weren't working, and I think they weren't able to connect to the car, which is kind of like something that I thought was solved in like 1995. So you're right, they're still,
they're still having problems.
Yeah,
I'll give your followers a little tip. If you do need to use Electrify America stations, download their app and initiate a charge from the app. You'll have a much higher success rate than if you try to use the card reader, because there's definitely some kind of wonky interface problem right now with the Electrify America card readers. And many times I've gone up and tried to initiate a charge and I can't, or it takes 2 or 3 times, or I have to call Electrify America for them to do it like over the air. Meanwhile, now when I started using the app, every time it works. So if you need to use Electrify America stations, I highly recommend that you download the app, get an account, and initiate your charge from that. I think you're going to have better success.
Great tip. Great tip. All right, I interrupted you. You were going. You were going through your top 3.
This is my weekly video.
Sorry, my bad. My bad. There you go. I'll give you your entire screen. There you go.
We talked about some of the things I would have done on the new Bolt. Love the new range. Love the new colors. Good steps in the right direction. But my 3 things that I probably would have liked to have seen would have been a faster DC charge rate, maybe 75 kilowatts, 100 kilowatts would have been awesome. That's number 1. Number 2, they still haven't made better seats for the Bolt. It's been my biggest complaint for the Chevy Bolt EV are the seats. I'm not a skinny guy. I'm not a huge guy, though. And the seats are just too narrow. They're, for me, incredibly uncomfortable. When I'm sitting, even in the passenger seat, my left leg kind of slides off the bottom cushion and wedges itself between the door and the cushion. When I'm driving, it just feels like if I move an inch or 2 either way, I'm off the seat pad. And it's just, in my opinion, it's inexcusable. I really talked to the Chevy reps about this. I've talked to them in the past. I talked to them at this drive event, and they said that a couple of years ago, they did improve the seats. They're the same seats, so maybe they put in different padding or something. I'm not sure, but in any event, in my opinion, me personally, I know this is a subjective point. It's one of my biggest disappointments of the Bolt EV. The seats are terrible. Okay, let's get beyond that now. And also the dashboard trim. I really don't like that white plastic that comes around on both sides of the dashboard, and then that like plastic chrome trim that goes underneath it. I think the dashboard would look so much nicer. They don't even have to change the dashboard; just eliminate that white plastic. It looks like bathroom counter. It doesn't work for me. I'd love to see that in a gray or a black or just something other than what it's available in now. And I just think those little things would make the interior better seats, nicer looking dashboard, and faster DC charge rate. Those three things I think would have made it an immensely better car. That said, I still recommend the Bolt to friends. I have a lot of people that ask me about electric vehicles. I get a lot of people reaching out to me through Inside EVs and through my own personal blogs for electric vehicle recommendations. The Bolt's high on my list. It's a great little hatchback. It's got a lot of room. It's fun to drive. The Bolt's quick. You know, it's certainly not underpowered. I'll tell you that. It's very functional for a family. It's got plenty of room in the back. It's got plenty of cargo space. Now it goes 259 miles. You know, if you drive that carefully, you can definitely squeeze 300 miles out of it in good weather. When it's cold, you're probably only going to see 200 to 220 miles ish. But that happens with all electric vehicles. The Bolt has a good thermal management system. You can precondition it, warm up the battery. That'll help, but it only just helps. Even with preconditioning, all electric vehicles suffer range, less range in the very cold winter months. But as far as what Chevy's doing, yes, this is a small incremental improvement with the range. Not too much more went on there. But it's still, in my opinion, a great little EV, and I definitely recommend it to people.
Yeah, you know, so I drive a Volt, right? So the drive was very familiar to me, which I like. There are a few features that I like even more than Tesla. I thought the design and the graphics wasn't as good interior for the Bolt, even though we were driving the 2020 pre-production car. And I still like my 2018 Volt better in terms of where everything else and even the graphics there. But I agree with you. It's not. It's powerful. Like whenever I need to take off of the light, it's in the sports mode. It is very powerful. It's plenty of room. It's quiet. I like the handling. But as you know, the exterior, I can see how it can do well in Europe where they don't sell it. But I'm just not a big fan.
It's a little kind of economy hatchback. It's not a premium luxury car.
Yeah.
I think the Volt was actually a little bit more upscale. Even the inside was a little bit more premium. It's just different cars for different uses, different people. But the one thing that I actually forgot to mention before that I absolutely love on the Bolt is how they've implemented the regenerative braking system. To this day, it is still the best implementation of regenerative braking of any electric vehicle. You've got basic drive. You can put it in low. The liftoff regen is very aggressive. And you've got that tremendous paddle where if you really need to slap, you pull that thing and it feels like a parachute deployed.
I love that.
Love how Chevy implemented the regenerative braking system. I've driven every EV out there, and I rank it #1 as the best implementation.
I agree.
Chevy engineers for that.
I agree. I love that little paddle on the wheel where you can just basically press it, and there's no stages or whatever. It just adds to regen braking. I use it all the time. When I had a Tesla and I would get back to my Tesla, I would continuously trying to find it in there. I was disappointed that I didn't. But listen, I think it is a good enough car, even with the incentives going away. Basically, January 1st, I believe they're going to be gone.
I think it's March 1st.
March 1st, yes, my bad. Yeah, so, I still think it's a really great car, again, if you're okay with the exterior.
April 1st, sorry.
Yeah, well, it's going away. I mean, it's down to under 2,000 already.
Right now it's 1825.
Yeah, something like that. Under $2,000.
That goes through the first quarter of 2020, and it ends April 1st.
Yeah, they're gonna still have to compete with others like Kia and Hyundai and even Nissan because they do have the full tax credit still. But I still think it's a great value, especially like, for example, you compare it to Model 3. Always everybody wants to compare it to Model 3. So for example, if you need to a lot of cargo space, you know, Model 3 is out no matter what. This is a hatchback, so it wins just by the default of being a hatchback. Now, they still have to compete with Kia and Hyundai and Nissan, but as far as just picking it between that and Tesla, that alone might just sway people to go this direction. The only problem I have, besides the exterior, is Chevy not being behind it, and then we just mentioned not selling it in Europe. I really hope they can step it up.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I'm not, you know, as concerned with European sales as domestic here, but you know, if you look at those four cars, the Nissan Leaf, the Kia Niro EV, the Hyundai Kona, and the Bolt, they're all kind of, you know, not too different. You know, I mean, they all have different aspects that they like. Some of the other cars might have a little bit nicer interior. The Kona, especially if you get the premium, it's got things like the pretty cool heads-up display, air-conditioned seats, maybe a little bit more of a premium interior. The Bolt is more like the workman special. Like, you know, if you just need basic transportation, you need to have cargo space, you put those seats back down, at the rear seats down in the Bolt, you've got a tremendous amount of cargo space back there. It's fun to drive, it's fast. The other cars do well too. They're no slouches. The Leaf is probably the slowest of the four. I'm not exactly sure. I believe it is, but the Leaf is also more of like the family, like a little bit more plush than on the interior, and it's a little bit larger than the Bolt. But you know, the Bolt will serve the needs of many people looking for, you know, transportation, electric transportation. Don't want to have to plug it in every day, you know, with a 150-mile range. So 260 miles now is really a fantastic range. And if you talk about the federal tax credit, yeah, that's a disadvantage. But GM knows this, and they've been aggressively putting up factory-to-dealer incentives to offset that. So you can definitely, if you look, you can find a Bolt for under $30,000, which is at that price, it's really a great deal. So while you don't get the federal tax credit, GM and the dealers understand that, so they're working on their end to figure out ways of getting the price down.
All right. Well, so I enjoyed this drive. It was a good experience. Wish we could kind of do it together, but maybe next time. I know we're going to be at the LA Auto Show. There will be plenty of unveilings, but for now, let everybody know how they can find you and follow you around on social media, because it is quite entertaining sometimes. So go ahead.
Sure. So I'm a regular staff writer over at Inside EVs, and you can follow me on Twitter at Tom Moloughney.
And those links are in the description of this video. All right, Tom, thanks for hanging out with me once again. I've enjoyed this. I'm looking forward to another few experiences we're going to have in the next couple of months. And I can't wait for the next time we're doing this, which is next week.
Very good. See you then, Alex.
See you then. All right. Well, you've heard the man. You can follow him, and links are in the description of this video. I strongly recommend, especially on Twitter. As a matter of fact, as Tom was going through his journey, he was tweeting the pictures and his impressions and stuff like that. So definitely make sure to follow him there. I think he's been just a bit more probably enthusiastic about this car. I've never been a big Bolt fan. Maybe I'm a little bit more of a fan now that I've driven it and now that they've extended the range. As I said, my problem is with Chevy not necessarily being as behind their electrification as they could be while having a great product. So we'll see. I am actually kind of looking forward to your comments, and especially if you have a Bolt, or maybe you bought a Model 3 or Niro or Kona and decided not to go with the Bolt. Let us know why. We definitely want to hear from you. Of course, I want to give a quick shout out to one of my Patreons, Jack Levy. Thank you so much for joining my Patreon community, and all of your Patreons. If you want to join me, patreon.com/E4Electric. I do most of these videos live there on Patreon, the only place to see me live. And also don't forget to join our VIP list. That's absolutely free. Go to the description of this video and sign up, E4Electric.com/VIP. All right, looking forward to your comments. Again, let's not bring other brands down. Let's just kind of have a constructive conversation there. So looking forward to that. Other than that, see you next time. And remember to stay charged.